In the pantheon of video games, there are some that make you wonder, who the heck thought this was a good idea? Games that are not necessarily terrible, although most of them are, but hurt the reputation of the programmers or the video game system it appeared on. So I've compiled a list of games for you that fit that criteria. So let's go ahead and get started with Action 52 for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Make your selection now.
Imagine being a parent thinking your kid would finally leave you alone if they had 52 games to play. Sure, $200 was a bit steep, but these 52 games would keep them busy for at least a year, right? But instead, little Johnny comes to you 30 minutes later saying, "Dad, these games suck." You would no doubt be very cheesed off that you wasted your money. This terrible game collection is just completely full of glitchy, garbage games. The best one is Cheetah-Men, and it's just as glitchy and frustrating to play as the rest of them. I was ashamed to learn that it was created using an Atari ST computer. Why couldn't it have been an Amiga for a change? Ultimately, the developer, Active Entertainment, never created another game. Or did they? Action 52 for the Sega Genesis. Uh-oh, here we go again. It wasn't bad enough to take advantage of Nintendo owners, but Active Entertainment had to target the Genesis owners too. Yeesh. In its defense, it does have much better visuals and sound. The games consist of very basic shooters, very basic side-scrollers, very basic shooters, very basic action games, and very basic shooters. Did I mention shooters? Yeah, this game collection has more shooters than the TurboGrafx 16. But hey, it does have the amazing Cheetah-Men 2, and by amazing, I mean terrible. It's really too bad Sega couldn't do something to stop these from appearing on its system. Adult Atari games for the Atari 2600. We know the Atari 2600 was mega popular back in the early 80s. So popular, in fact, that companies M.U.S.C.L.E and Playaround, who I guess are the same, thought that they could make a bunch of money by selling adult sex video games on the system. These were hard to come by and only sold in specialty stores. No way that Sears, Kmart, or Zayres is going to be carrying these. There's several game types, some similar to Breakout, Blueprint, or Kaboom. But the worst of the worst was Custer's Revenge, where the object of the game is completely reprehensible. These games didn't do Atari any favors, and instead are a dark stain on the system's legacy. Back to the Future Part 2 and 3 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Here we have a lazy game that is no way based on the movie. No surprise, it's from perpetually bad publisher LJN, who had a knack for selecting terrible developers for its licenses. This game has you basically going around and collecting objects and putting them in the correct time periods. I absolutely hate the controls. Marty just looks and plays so janky, kinda like the animation is off or something. Aw man, this stupid bird is after me now. You remember in the movie where the blue bird attacked Marty, right? Or when he had to jump on the spiked turtles? Or when he was attacked by trash cans with eyeballs? Yeah, I don't remember that part either. Back to the Future Part 3 for the Sega Genesis. So I already knew this game would be trash before it was even released on the Genesis and Mega Drive. You see, it was already critically panned for the Atari ST and Amiga computers, and this was nothing more than a port of those games. First of all, look at the graphics. Why are they so freaking dark? The initial frustrating horse riding stage is one I bet most people didn't even get past. Then there's a side mission of a shooting gallery that had little bearing on the story. Next is a pie throwing stage where the aiming is just awful. And then finally the train stage where I think you just have to get to the end. Ugh. Back to the Future is such a great movie series, it really deserved to have at least one really good game. The Blues Brothers for the Super Nintendo. What? You've never heard of the Blues Brothers? It's a 1980 movie starring John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd who travel in a beat-up police car on a mission from God to save their orphanage. Now, you'd think the game might have you driving the car from place to place and getting into wacky adventures, but nope. It's just a generic side-scrolling platform game, and a colorful one at that. This just totally does not match the tone of the movie. This is more like a cartoon. All you need to do is reach the jukebox at the end of the stage to move on to the next. The controls are a bit slippery, but, you know, I got used to them. You need to collect extremely valuable records and then throw them at enemies like weird bees, trap-jaw dogs, and funky snails. Okay? My favorite part is when you say, rock and roll. Rock and roll. It's really cheesy. This license was long past its prime when the game was released, so it makes me wonder, was this in the bargain bin of licenses when Titus acquired it? Yeah, it's Titus, so probably. Rock and roll. Checkered flag for the Atari Jaguar. Atari's answer to virtual racing has all the components of being a great game. It has some great looking flat shaded polygon graphics, which I love by the way. It also has some pretty good music, 10 tracks to choose from, and a bunch of options for weather, tires, transmission, and a number of racers. It keeps it simple by not having any kind of tournament modes or tracks to unlock. You get it all up front. You can even change your view and play from inside the car, behind it, or above it. Now, the one thing that overshadows all the great things this game offers is the terrible control. It really makes the game utterly unplayable. If you can't get the controls right, why even make it? This is another one that hurts the Jaguar's good name. Color a Dinosaur for the Nintendo Entertainment System. First of all, who wants a digital coloring book? Are crayons and paper not good enough? In this cartridge we have 16 different dinosaurs to choose from. We can click on the body and change the color. Blue is nice. Now let's make the wings red. The choice of colors are just very limited, and some of them are dithered. Ugh, yuck. When you fill in a section, it does it in chunks and then does the detail work. Man, you can tell the NES is working extra hard here. So there's actually different color palettes to choose from, but the colors are still very limited. So what am I supposed to do when I finish coloring the dinosaur? There's really no way to save it. I guess you just have to take a Polaroid? This is a, quote, game that makes the NES look so weak. Dark Castle for the Sega Genesis. This one could have been fun, but instead it's just really painful. In Dark Castle, you are on a quest to defeat Ganon, the Dark Knight. Fortunately, you have really amazing controls, making you feel as though you were really there. And by amazing, I mean total garbage. To throw a rock or whatever, you press C, but then you have to aim by moving the controller up or down. In order to duck, you press down, right? That's what you would think. But no, not at all. You press B, naturally.
Yeah.
Then if you want to do some ridiculous looking long jump, you press the C button. Also, how the heck is this weakling character supposed to defeat the Dark Knight? He dies if he so much looks at a rat. I find this game to be practically unplayable, but I heard the Macintosh version is, quote, perhaps the best arcade game I've seen on any microcomputer ever, according to Computer Gaming World magazine. I guess they'd never heard of Pac-Man before. Dragon's Lair for the Nintendo Entertainment System. A port of the full-motion video game, only it's not full-motion video at all? I mean, did anyone really think that the NES could do FMV? Maybe if it had a better GPU and more RAM. Okay, acronym jokes aside, I think this game could have been full motion video. Ever see the Game Boy Color version? Anyway, the developers decided to go with a side-scrolling action game instead, and on first inspection, it looks and sounds pretty good. The problem are the cryptic puzzles to solve and the instant deaths. Also, Dirk's animation really hampers the gameplay. I can't get very far into this game, and I'm not alone because it's almost universally hated. E.T. for the Atari 2600. Okay, stop it. E.T. is not a bad game. That's not at all why it's on this list. It's only here because of how bad it hurt Atari's reputation and is unjustly blamed for destroying the early 80s video game industry. In the game, you play as a little alien named Zrek who must find the pieces of the transmitter while avoiding FBI agents and scientists who want to dissect him. You can run by pressing the button, but it uses up your energy. You can increase your energy by eating Reese's Pieces. Falling into holes is the most frustrating part of the game, at least until you learn how to avoid them. After you build the transmitter and find the call point, your friends will come and save you. Not a terrible game if you give it a chance. Fight for Life for the Atari Jaguar. Another game that I had high hopes for since it was coded by one of the Virtual Fighter programmers. I guess it takes more than one person to make a good game. Anyway, this is a 3D fighting game that honestly doesn't look all that bad. The backgrounds are nice and the characters are large. Oh, and they're texture map, which is an improvement over Virtual Fighter. There are 8 characters to choose from and several modes like Tournament, 2-player, and Beginner. Control is okay, I guess. The biggest problem with the game is how little damage that each hit deals out, and also how slow your character moves around. Seriously? It's really too bad that the Jaguars' last official game had to be this. It's a game that really hurt the Jaguars' reputation. Whoa! Grand Theft Auto for the Game Boy Color. I'll be honest, I played Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, and I love them. They're fun games to be sure, but this is where it all started. Not on the Game Boy Color, of course, but with this first game presented in a top-down view. First, you'll notice that the game is nearly silent. Pretty sure I didn't turn off the music or anything, that's just how it played. Second, the controls are awful. It basically uses tank-style controls. Turn your character left and right, and then press down to move, or press A to run. It's actually pretty confusing. Third, I don't think you can jump in a car right away, which is too bad. The game isn't great, but it appears on this list because it's Grand Theft Auto on the Game Boy. Should kids be playing this? Home Improvement for the Super Nintendo. Here's a TV show that totally doesn't work as a video game. You play as Tim the Toolman Taylor, whose tools have been stolen and scattered throughout the TV studio. And as you can see, the first stage is kind of like Jurassic Park, where you have to find all the different tools. Now there are bolts in the game, and if you get them, they'll protect you, kind of like the rings in Sonic. You're allowed to get hit once you have at least one bolt. The graphics actually aren't too bad. The music isn't very good though, it's kind of low and muted. Now you are able to use your tools as weapons. As you can see, the primary weapon here is the nail gun. But you can also use jackhammers and sledgehammers and some other tools to get you a little bit further into the game. There's also a grappling hook that shoots out of your nail gun. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. The controls are just very sloppy, and it's always confusing as to which direction you have to press in order to use the different tools. I wasn't able to get too far into the game, and it's mostly because everything kills you in about 2 seconds flat. Honestly, it wouldn't be too bad of a game if the controls weren't so sloppy. Also, the premise is just odd. I don't know what they were thinking when they came up with this. Jinks for the Atari 7800. Based on this game, it looks like drug use was still a thing at Atari back in the early 90s. The goal here is to get your ball to the exit, but don't waste your time trying to play it like Breakout and hit the bricks. Oh no, because that would actually be fun. The graphics are kind of interesting, but the sound is super annoying. There's really not much gameplay here, which is frustrating knowing Atari's simple to learn, difficult to master mantra. I get that the developer wanted to make something unique, but his time might have been better utilized making something like, say, oh, I don't know, Arkanoid? Karateka, or Karateka for the Atari 7800. Oh man, this one is just so bad. Bad graphics, bad controls, bad sound. It's frankly an embarrassment on the 7800, making the system look so weak. And I hate to say that because it was created by Prince of Persia designer Jordan Mechner. I take it he didn't create this version of the game though? Probably not. The game feels like a library filler and Atari probably didn't care that it wasn't any fun. I can't get very far into the game before I get the urge to play something else more appealing, like, I don't know, maybe E.T. for example? KLAX for the Nintendo Game Boy. This is a puzzle game where you must match up tiles of the same color. Wait, did I say color? Yeah, that's right. This is a game where color is required, and guess what? The Game Boy is in black and white, or black and green. So how the heck are you supposed to play it? With tiles that have design patterns on them, of course. Ugh. The problem is that it's hard to distinguish the different designs on the tiles, making the game exceptionally hard to play. Really, without color, this game never should have even been considered on the Game Boy, let alone created. Knuckles Chaotix for the Sega 32X. Why? Why? Why couldn't Sega just make a normal Sonic game for the 32X? Oh no, instead they had to be clever and create a game where your characters are tethered together. They bounce around all over the screen and are nearly impossible to control. I do like the color visuals and the sound effects though. I think very few people enjoy this game, and it's one that really feels like a missed opportunity. It could have been so good! But instead, it's a stain on the 32X's already weak library. It could have been a system seller, instead it repels more players than anything else. Mortal Kombat for the Game Boy. Mortal Kombat was just beginning its reign in the arcades when the home versions were announced. I can understand why it was ported to the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo as they were the most popular consoles at the time. But the Game Boy? Yeah, I get it. It was also very popular, but look at this. Ugh. The Game Boy just isn't capable of doing this game justice. The graphics are muddy, there's only 3 backgrounds, and it's missing Johnny Cage. That is totally unforgivable. The other thing is the controls. The Game Boy only has 2 buttons while the arcade uses 5. How the heck are you supposed to play this? It's obvious that this game was just a quick cash grab, and as a Mortal Kombat fan, I just wish it never existed. M.U.S.C.L.E for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Here's a wrestling game based on a line of toys. Plastic toys at that. Seriously, these were popular enough to make a video game? Or was the game hoping to be popular enough to sell the toys? Either way, this game is total trash. The moves are totally non-intuitive. You want some of this? Oh yeah, here, take that. Okay, maybe a different character is more fun. No, it's not. The graphics are some of the worst I've seen on the NES. Action 52 might actually be better. The ring itself is stark white, there's no crowd animation, and the characters look like they were created with ASCII symbols. Ugh. The controls are terrible too. I could barely do any of the moves. Totally laughable game that didn't make me want to buy any toys, that's for sure. The Mythicon games for the Atari 2600. So you think you know what the worst game of all time is? You think it's E.T.? Oh, my friends, you've never played the Mythicon games, have you? Let's start with Starfox, which was their first game. It kinda looks like a Defender clone where you shoot aliens, but listen to those wonderful sound effects. Ear-piercing to say the least. And why does your ship scroll to the wrong side of the screen? Then there's Sorcerer, which is a reworking of Starfox. You are a sorcerer on a magic carpet shooting enemies. If you miss, and you will 90% of the time, you have to wait for your shot to go off the screen. By then the enemies will get you. Lastly, there's what I consider to be the worst video game of all time, and that is Firefly. Again, it's a reworking of Starfox with terrible sounds and tedious gameplay. Just fly from screen to screen, shooting enemies and collecting treasure. That's it. That's the entire game. These games were a cheap $10 back in the day, but you'd be better off buying a 12-pack of rotten eggs, because these games are rotten. Get it? Rotten. Never mind. Pac-Man 2, the new adventures for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Imagine being a Pac-Man fan who's played all the arcade games, Ms. Pac-Man, Junior Pac-Man, Super Pac-Man, and seeing this game at Electronics Boutique. Wow, you say, it's Pac-Man 2. This is going to be the best Pac-Man game ever. Now imagine popping the cartridge in your Genesis or Super Nintendo and learning that the game is an adventure game where you don't even control the character, have to tell him where to look and hope that he does what you need him to do. Oh man. Well, I mean, at least you got a slingshot you can smack him with. That's kind of fun. This game deviated so far from the originals that it, along with the other oddball Pac games, very likely hurt the property for many years. Fortunately, he got back on track in 2007 with Pac-Man Championship Edition. Pit Fighter for the Super Nintendo. This is a one-on-one fighting game based on the Atari games arcade game. The graphics are tiny, the music is bad, the controls are awful. But even worse than all of that is the fact that you get no continues. If you die, that's it. That's the end of the game. I don't know what they were thinking when they came up with that. But there is absolutely no way that anybody could get through this entire game on one credit. The graphics are terrible, of course, but let's not forget the sound and the music, which is just abysmal. The original Pit Fighter game for the arcade is actually pretty fun, and the Genesis game isn't too bad, but this one, stay away from. Stay far, far away. It is one of the worst games ever. Race Drivin for the Super Nintendo. The classic Atari arcade game. The Super Nintendo game runs at a jaw-dropping 3 frames per second. Well, at least that's what it feels like anyway. And whenever you crash, it sounds like you just had an accident in the bathroom. I don't know, it cracks me up. But I'll be honest, I gave this game a chance. I played it for a little while. I was able to get through the track. You just have to know how fast to drive your car. Here we are going through the loop-de-loop. And yep, I made it. Aside from the frame rate and the sound effects, this isn't too bad of a conversion of the original game. It didn't take me very long to get decent at it. Of course, the other problem with the game is that there really isn't a lot of gameplay to it. It's just driving around on a track. So in that sense, it's a little bit boring. Honestly, I'm kind of curious as to who would want to buy this game and play it at home. This is really best suited for an arcade cabinet. Sega CD full motion video games for the Sega CD. These games are so infamous that full motion video is what people think of when the Sega CD is mentioned. I know I sure do. They took the concept of Dragon's Lair and applied it to movies. A lot of them use the FMV as a background for shooting objects, like Ground Zero Texas. That's not too bad. Others like Slam City have you playing basketball? Wow, who thought this was a good idea? Then there's the Make My Video games. Seriously, you just press a button to choose a video clip. Most times they change too quickly anyway. And of course, there's the most famous full-motion video game of all time, Night Trap, a frustrating game that is practically unplayable. The one good FMV game is Road Avenger, but even it couldn't save the Sega CD's reputation. Slaughter Sport for the Sega Genesis.
Welcome to the Fight Palace.
This is another one that started off as a computer game. There it was called Tongue of the Fat Man. Great title, huh? So who is the Fat Man anyway? Some kind of Jabba the Hutt ripoff? Let me tell you up front that I can't even get past the first stage in this game. The opponent is right on top of me and won't give me a freaking chance. The controls are really weird. If I get punched, my character gets up facing the opposite direction, and then I can't really turn around before my opponent is attacking me again. Come on! And when I'm able to throw a punch or kick, it doesn't do much damage, if it even actually lands. There's no way in any universe that this game isn't total garbage. This game is so bad it makes me hate my Genesis. Ugh. Space Ace for the Super Nintendo. This game is nothing like the original arcade Laserdisc game by Don Bluth. So instead we kind of get this action platform style game, and it starts out here where you try to avoid the lasers from, I guess his name is Borf. And eventually I figured out the pattern to avoid the lasers, but when I went a little bit further into the game, I could not get past this part at all. I tried jumping on this platform and then back again, but I just couldn't quite get it. And I really got sick of hearing Dexter say, over and over again. I wanted to smash my controller after hearing that for the 50th time. The graphics and music aren't too bad, but it's really the gameplay in this one that just frustrates the living heck out of me. And a huge contributor to my frustration is also the controls, which are terrible. I feel like I can't quite gauge Dexter's jumps properly. If you were expecting this to be anything like the arcade game, well, I don't know what to tell you there. This game is really not fun, not enjoyable at all. Superman for the Nintendo 64. Okay, so this game has a pretty bad reputation, doesn't it? So you play as the Man of Steel himself who can fly, use super breath, heat vision, and battle Lex Luthor's enemies. You start off by flying through rings. Okay, that's not too bad. Controls are a little wonky though. It's kind of tricky to get Superman to fly how I want him. I did manage to get through the stage though. Next was picking up cars and throwing them. Maybe they have bombs in them or something? Then the next stage has you flying through more rings. At least that's what you're supposed to do. But for some reason, Superman was on the ground and I couldn't get him to fly upwards. I don't know, maybe it's a glitch. Either way, this is often considered the worst game for the Nintendo 64, and I can see why. Who wants to fly through rings this often? Not me. Not only does this game hurt the reputation of the Nintendo 64, it hurts the whole Superman franchise. Of all the Superman games that are out there, this is definitely at the bottom of the list. Syndicate for the Atari Jaguar. The popular Amiga computer game has absolutely no business being on a video game system. But even as a computer game, I've never really understood the appeal of this one. You take on the evil whatever corporation in a post-apocalyptic future by controlling a team of cybernetically enhanced humans in a 3D isometric city using the controller to point at enemies to shoot. Whew, man, that was a sentence. The controls are really my biggest problem with this game. It heavily uses the Jaguar's keypad, so pressing 1 through 4 will select your agent, pressing 5 will select all the agents on the screen, and pressing 7 will select your weapon. Then you have to press the B button to select where you want to go, and the A button in order to shoot. If you don't know all that in advance, you're pretty much screwed. Also, the menus are extremely confusing. I'm pressing B to start the game, or no, I'm pressing A, or now I'm pressing back to go back. I don't know what I'm doing here. This is really annoying. This is apparently a pretty good version of Syndicate, but it's another one of those quickie computer ports that made the Jaguar look 16-bit. Unfortunately, there was just way too many of those. Wayne's World for the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. So, what is the premise of this game? Just randomly wandering a music store stage that looks like it was created by hurling all over the screen? Good lord. You can strum the guitar to attack bagpipes, horns, other instruments. Is this supposed to be some kind of a nightmare or something? You also die instantly if you touch those electrical pulses. Very frustrating. This is also a multi-story music store, and the only way to get up there is to jump on the drums. How does anything in this game make any sense? The music is some of the worst I have ever heard when it should be good for a game like this. I had little interest in getting to the later stages, but I understand they're just as awful as this one. I'm happy to not be worthy of this game. Where's Waldo for the Nintendo Entertainment System? Here's a game based on the popular series of children's puzzle books. Awesome! Now we can find Waldo without needing to open one of those icky books. Because as we know, hooking up a video game to a TV is much easier than reading. Anyway, this game has Waldo wandering around a train station, a forest, a cave, the fair, and other places. But look at this. How are you supposed to pick out Waldo when the screen is so low res? All the characters on the screen are just so tiny and lack enough detail to distinguish him from the other people. Alright, let's see if we can find Waldo here in the city. I am genuinely looking for Waldo here. Nope, not there. I'm just gonna go click every section on the screen. Shoot, I give up. You'd be better off buying one of his books. It's cheaper and more enjoyable. The Wisdom Tree Bible games for the Nintendo Entertainment System. This is a series of unlicensed video games for the NES. Why do they exist, you ask? Well, certainly it was because the developer, Wisdom Tree, aka Color Dreams, didn't want to spend the money for an official license from Nintendo. So instead they created their own workaround for the Nintendo lockout chip and self-published their games. Naturally, this didn't please Nintendo, who ordered retailers not to stock these games, and instead they were sold in Christian bookstores. Now that's all well and good, but the games are not. They're rather basic because they don't use any special memory mapper chips. Sometimes they're interesting, like when Noah has to chase down animals to put them in the ark, but I can't stand that monkey. Get back here, you little... Get over here! Then there's the constant reskins, such as Sunday Funday. This one seems familiar, doesn't it? Anyway, I highly doubt that Jesus would approve of these games. Alright, well, there you go. Some video games that never should have been made. Ugh. What games do you feel never should have been made? Please let me know down in the comments. Thank you to my members. I really appreciate you supporting the channel. Thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.